The Hunter Biden laptop is back in the news. President Joe Biden goes after MAGA Republicans. California lawmakers approve a landmark bill helping fast food workers. And Kamala Harris will answer any questions on how we're going to pay for the student loan debt forgiveness plan. All that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. It is Wednesday, August 31st, and as always, I couldn't be happier than to spend these fine mornings doing The Bald Brad Show and hanging out with all of you true American patriots, where we come together as a community of conservatives and Republicans, go over the stories of the day, and bring you all the news and information you need to know about. So if you want to join us here at The Bald Brad Show, we hope that you do. Like I said, we're a big community here of conservatives, Republicans. We would love for you to join us. Hit that like and subscribe button. If you're over at Rumble, hit the plus and give us a comment down below. And if you're listening on any of the podcast airwaves, Apple, Google, Spotify, heck, folks, you can find us anywhere and everywhere. Leave us a lovely 5-star review. Not only would you be helping a conservative, but most importantly, you'd be supporting getting conservative thought and ideas out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. So your help and support would be greatly appreciated. And as always, folks, make sure you leave us a comment down below. It does help the YouTube algorithm, and it does allow, again, viewers to stream and flock to our content. With that being said, it is Wednesday, folks. It is hump day, so let's just jump right in the news here regarding the Hunter Biden laptop. This is back in the news. I mean, there's a big deal, obviously, with the Hunter Biden laptop, but there's also a bigger deal that we were all told for a very long time that this laptop never existed, that this was Russian disinformation. And if you even so much as to mention it on social media during the election, by the way, you were removed, you were deplatformed, you were censored. This was all fake. This was not real. It was all smoke, no fire. But all of a sudden, turns out now it's real. Turns out people want to talk about it. Turns out the mainstream media wants to talk about it. And there was a bombshell the other day with Mark Zuckerberg on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about how, well, we were worried because the FBI was worried. And so because the FBI was worried, we were just going to do something a little bit different than Twitter. And we were just going to censor anybody and everybody that kind of talked about it on Facebook. During the election, do you think maybe some people might have wanted to know what was going on with Biden? What was going on with Hunter Biden as well? His business dealings, the things that were on that laptop, you think that might have had a little bit of an impact on the election? That's what the polls and the data say. A lot of people would have switched and would have changed their vote based on the information that they know now, of which the big tech, the social media companies suppressed. I just love how now all of a sudden the election's over. Now we could talk about all this. Now we're okay to talk about it and not worried about being censored for the most part. Well, Republican senators are demanding that Facebook turn over its communications with the FBI regarding Hunter Biden's laptop. Quote, the American people deserve to know whether the FBI used Facebook as part of their alleged plan to discredit information about Hunter Biden. If that is true, this is coming from Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson of Wyoming, I believe. If this is true, this is a massive infiltration of the FBI. And now we're seeing a consecutive term or years going forward here of which the FBI has done some shady things against not just Trump, but also against the Republicans and conservatives. And not just the FBI, but again, under the Obama administration, you had the IRS targeting conservatives, name brand conservatives, and denying it. And it turns out it was real. In the same way, everybody on the Democrat side of the aisle was denying the Hunter Biden laptop existed. Turns out that was real as well. So we're seeing consistencies here in things saying that they're fake and all of a sudden they're real and that we're conspiracy theorists. Turns out we're all legit. Facebook did not immediately respond to requests for comment from the Daily Wire. Mark Zuckerberg's admission to the podcast host Joe Rogan that Facebook decreased distribution of the Hunter Biden laptop story ahead of the 2020 election at the bidding of the FBI. And obviously that has sparked massive backlash. I mean, that was it, at the time, just kind of listening to it, it doesn't seem like a big thing. It just looks like two guys having a conversation. But within that was such a mind-blowing statement. It was literally head-spinning and just sparked massive backlash here. Quote, the FBI routinely notifies U.S. private sector entities, including social media providers, of potential threat information, so that they can decide how to better defend against threats. The FBI said in a statement Friday night, adding that it cannot ask or direct companies to take action on information received. The lawmakers specifically requested all records between and among Facebook, the FBI, and the DOJ, as well as government agency employees that refer to Hunter Biden, including but not limited to Russian disinformation, the Hunter Biden laptop, and senators' investigation into Hunter Biden's business dealings. They also asked for the names of the DOJ, FBI, Facebook officials who communicated regarding Russian disinformation during the 2020 election, as well as those officials who made contact during the 2020 election, and the dates of when Facebook decreased the distribution of the articles relating to Hunter Biden's laptop, which again would probably show, depending on the dates and times, a massive sway in the election and the integrity of the election as well. I mean, folks, let's be real here. The more information that comes out, the more and more we're all inclined to believe that there was some fishy stuff going on. We don't have the evidence to prove that, the election would sway one way or the other, but there definitely was fishy stuff going on, and there was definitely fraud going on as well. I mean, that part's actually verifiable. That part's legit. You can actually see on the records dead people voting. You can also see people that were voting from places that literally don't exist, from addresses that don't exist. And that's not something you have to wait for the government to do that. I mean, you could literally actually do that yourself by looking up the registry and just driving to the location. There's nobody there. So we know that stuff happened. You had a great job from Dinesh D'Souza doing 2,000 Mules, talking about election integrity and kind of the shadiness that was going on. And now you have big tech in bed with the Democrats, probably doing more shady stuff on suppressing information. Quote, your revelation that Facebook took steps to censor information about Hunter Biden on its platform based on the FBI's guidance raises even more questions about the FBI's actions regarding Hunter Biden's laptop, the letter said. As you may know, the senators continued, whistleblowers have recently alleged that Senator Grassley, that in August 2020, FBI officials initiated a scheme to downplay derogatory information on Hunter Biden for the purpose of shutting down investigative activity relating to his potential criminal exposure by labeling it disinformation. That's negligence. You are knowingly doing something, trying to suppress certain information to get an outcome of which you desire. I mean, that's infiltration of the FBI that's supposed to not be political or biased. And now they're going with the side of a specific party here. That should worry all of you. Once the FBI, that's used as a club, very similar to the IRS, becomes corrupt, you basically have a fall of our institutions here in America. Whistleblowers have also alleged to Senator Johnson that local FBI leadership instructed its employees not to look at the Hunter Biden laptop immediately after the FBI had obtained it. But if this was Trump, if the shoe was on the other foot, they would have lost their minds. The media would have lost their minds. Democrats would have lost their minds. The progressive left would have lost their minds. People would have gone in the streets. Folks, literally Trump was investigated, and I believe he was impeached under the same thing, for basically having a phone call with Zelensky. Was it Zelensky? He had a phone call, and they were freaking out over the transcript and everything like that. I mean, they were literally freaking out as well and wanted to put in the 25th Amendment because his hand was shaking when he was having a glass of water. We've seen Joe Biden fall off his bike. We've seen Joe Biden hit a golf ball backwards. We've seen Joe Biden slur his words constantly. He doesn't know the names of his staff. He doesn't know his wife's name. He gets chauffeured around by the Easter Bunny and his wife and Secret Service and doesn't follow orders. He fights with his teleprompter. He forgets that he says something. So then when he's at the G7 summit, Boris Johnson and everybody else laugh at him at the G7 summit because he loses his train of thought. None of that's investigated. There's no cognitive test here. But again, Trump just gets treated vastly different, not just by the Democrats, but by the DOJ, the FBI, the IRS, and others. He was just raided for having documents. I'm all on board with, hey, he needs to give the documents back. If he didn't declassify it, those are National Archives, whatever. But he was complying. But they raided him. But here, you actually had leaked information from the Hunter Biden laptop. You have video recordings, footage, photos of their faces, the people involved. You have the sound bites of them. You have voicemails of Joe Biden himself. You have emails of Joe Biden himself. Nothing. Nothing at all. No raids, nothing. And we're going on years now at this point. Nothing. It's corrupt, folks. It's really corrupt. There's a lot of stuff going on. You also just had the probe of the FBI that was involved in all of this, especially the Mar-a-Lago stuff as well. There's a lot of stuff that's coming out, folks, getting exposed. But ultimately, he ended up resigning. Supposedly, he got the boot as well. And it seems like they softened the blow with him to allow him to resign. And I think if you resign, somebody correct me, I think if you resign yourself, you still get a pension because he was in there for like 25 years as FBI probe. I'm going to hold off on going over that story because I want more information to come out. The FBI is getting a really tight-lipped on this because it seems like they're having a massive turnover of what's going on here. Basically, this Mar-a-Lago raid what's going on with now the Hunter Biden laptop is kind of shaking things up in that institution, as it should be. I mean, ever since we've been dealing with James Comey, folks, things have been going irate there in the FBI. That's not to bash FBI as a whole. There's a lot of good people, a lot of good agents that do good work, but there's also some like Peter Strzok and others that we saw the text messages under the Trump administration that are in some fishy business here, acting biased and going after a specific party, meaning the Republicans. Well, in other news, we have the Biden spotlighting a fight to protect democracy during supposedly an upcoming speech. Now, we talked a little bit of this yesterday, kind of this idea of Joe Biden going after MAGA Republicans, calling them semi-fascist. And you had Juan Williams the other day on Fox News going at it with Karl Rove regarding statements that Biden made. And the statements that Biden made was going after conservatives and Republicans, which is obviously wrong. You shouldn't do that, especially when you just get done saying, hey, I'm here to unify the country. I'm here so we have kumbaya and we all get along. And then he pulls that stunt going after them. Well, here the stunt's not over yet because supposedly the White House says President Biden will head to Philadelphia on Thursday for a speech in which he will argue that, get this, that America's democracy remains under attack and highlight who is fighting to protect the nation's freedoms. Meaning it's under attack by Republicans is what a lot of people are predicting he's going to go with, as well as that those that are protecting the freedoms are the Democrat Party. Let that sink in. That is crazy, folks. I mean, literally, we just got done talking about how the Democrat Party wanted to censor your speech based on something that existed, but they are telling you it didn't exist. I mean, they basically wanted to create a truth council. Do you remember that? And that kind of went out the window with, I think it was Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary, was going to initiate it. Basically be able to tell you what was disinformation and misinformation and be able to censor people. And they're like, oh, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. It was basically out of George Orwell's playbook there, 1984. It's so crazy to me that they actually think that Republicans are the ones that are attacking a democracy here. When you have the First Amendment under attack by the Democrats, then the House of Representatives, that's controlled by the Democrats, tries to ban, or did actually approve of it, the ban of certain semi-automatic weapons, which is an infringement on your Second Amendment right. I know that when we say certain things, they think it doesn't imply infringement, but infringement is exactly what they are doing. You don't have a right to infringe on my Second Amendment right. If I want to use an AR-15, I have the right to choose and use an AR-15. But what they're doing is they're chiseling away over time to the point where there's not going to be any semi-automatic weapons anymore. There's not going to be places that you can actually carry, which we're seeing right now. When there was that New York case about the conceal and carry that was passed by the Supreme Court, basically will allow you to conceal and carry without the permission of your locality or your county to issue a concealed carry license. What they're doing now to combat that, the Democrats, is they're virtually saying, well, you can't carry anywhere. This is a gun-free zone. So that's how they're combating the right to carry as well as the right for you to bear arms by just saying, well, you can't carry in all these places. So virtually it's going to get to the point where you can't carry anywhere. So it will get to the point where you don't have any semi-automatic weapons, handguns, shotguns. You're not going to be able to carry anywhere, and you're not going to be able to carry at all. Meaning you're not going to have a Second Amendment. And if you don't have a Second Amendment, then folks, you're not going to have a First Amendment either. And then all your other rights will just cripple, and it'll be a snowball effect after that. I mean, that's what I see the Democrats doing over the course of time. I don't see the Republicans doing that. I don't see the Republicans going after free speech. I see Republicans and conservatives like myself, as well as all of you, saying, hey, I don't agree with the Democrat Party and their platform and the things they push. I don't agree with the progressive left, but I think they have a right to say it. I think they have a right to do it. There was a lawmaker speaking kind of the Second Amendment and attaching it to progressive left, and I think they have a right. There was a drag show recently, and I promise we'll get back to this because it's everything to do with Biden's whole story here and the things that he's pushing. There's a drag queen. It's not a play. I don't know what you call it, performance. And it was for kids. And outside guarding it was Antifa with rifles. And lawmakers and some people were upset over it. I'm okay with that. Not the weapons in front of the kids. I mean, the idea of you doing it, I personally wouldn't do it. But I mean, they have a right to go out and carry if it was a gun-free zone. But that's what I mean, is I want their right to be able to say whatever they want. If they want to call people fascists, I don't agree with it, but they have a right to do it. If they want to go and utilize their Second Amendment rights in front of children, I don't agree with them in front of children. I don't really think you should do it, but they have a right to do it. So I don't see that same emphasis on taking care of other people's rights for them to utilize. I only see them trying to take care of and remove the rights of other people, meaning Republicans and conservatives, and let them keep the rights. Meaning the progressive left can say whatever they want, but the second a Republican or conservative says a man is a man on social media, you're banned, you're deplatformed, you're removed. The second that a Republican or conservative says the Hunter Biden laptop's a legit story, it's not Russian disinformation, you're banned and you're removed from social media. But remember, we're the ones that are attacking democracy, not the Democrats. Well, the speech is the crucial general election battleground state of Pennsylvania. This comes up all the time and comes less than 10 weeks ahead of the November midterm elections when the Democrats hope to hold on to their razor-thin majorities in the House of Representatives and the Senate. The address also comes as Biden has raised his rhetoric in recent days, targeting who he argues are anti-democratic MAGA Republicans who have embraced fascism. I almost said racism, fascism. These words just come off my tongue because that's another thing they call us, right? Is racist. When we're not racist, we want everybody to succeed in this country. We can only be so clear here on the Bald Brad Show, and I know all of you agree with me. We just want people to succeed. Follow the law, do the things necessary, don't hurt anybody, and just be successful in life, regardless of race, ethnicity, skin color, whatever it may be. Just make a series of good decisions, and you will make it in this country. The president will speak in Philadelphia's Independence National Historic Park, where the Declaration of Independence and the nation's constitution were debated and signed. I mean, just a remarkable place to do this speech, right? Literally, this guy here, the guy that doesn't even know what he's signing half the time, the guy that literally is going after Republicans and conservatives, the guy that uses the FBI as a club but then says, I don't know anything about the Mar-a-Lago raid and all these things. Yeah, he's going to be speaking at this historic place here that actually represents our Constitution, while the Democrats in Congress, the House of Representatives, literally try to strip away your Second Amendment rights. I mean, the irony there, it's really nuts. Quote, he will speak about how the core values of this nation are standing in the world. Our democracy are at stake, the White House official confirmed to Fox News. He will talk about the progress we have made as a nation to protect our democracy, but how our rights and freedoms are still under attack. Yeah, you should continue that. Our rights and freedoms are under attack by the Democrat Party, not the Republican Party. Remember how they just shelled out thousands and millions of ballots in the mail during COVID? And again, people are getting like 5 at a time. I know I got 3 ballots. And so people were voting. Again, Dinesh D'Souza did a fabulous job in 2000 Mules tracking people. So there's definitely fraud going on. But again, we're the threat to democracy here. So it's all of us. It's not Antifa. It's not Black Lives Matter that literally are fascist and are Marxist. And that's not coming from me. That's literally coming from them themselves. The White House added that the president will make clear who is fighting for those rights, fighting for those freedoms, and fighting for our democracy. Last week, the comments that received plenty of pushback from Republicans, the president blasted a GOP that is still very much under the firm grip of former President Trump, Biden's predecessor in the White House. We love Trump because he actually stands up for our rights. And not just our rights too, but even other nations. Like, look what happened in the Middle East. You had a lot of peace going on at the time. Look what he was trying to negotiate in North Korea. You didn't have Russia invading Ukraine at the time. You didn't have a massive U.S. immigration problem. You didn't have massive inflation. You didn't have massive gas prices. I mean, if you just look at the litany of things that Biden did, he's trying to gaslight all of us on everything. And they do this with history, right? The revisionist history that we talked about the other day, the Howard Zinn stuff, where, oh, it was the Republicans that were the racist. It wasn't the Democrats. It was the South that was racist. Well, yeah, but who lived in the South? Oh, it was Democrats. It was the Democratic South that was racist. Oh, I got you. Well, who were the creators of the Ku Klux Klan? Oh, it was the Democrats. But then they say there's this whole big switch thing because they don't want to be the party that had sheer evil and plagued this country for so many years. Remember, it's the Republicans that are the party of freedom. It's the Republicans that freed the slave. It's the Republicans that were the civil rights people. So it's all these things, but they try to diminish those things because they weren't involved in it. Or at least if they were, there wasn't a good proportion of them. They don't want to talk about that stuff, folks. They just want to call us the racists, the semi-fascists, that we're destructing democracy and all these other things. So crazy. It goes on to say, what we are seeing now is either the beginning or death knell of the extreme MAGA philosophy. Biden told Democratic donors at a gathering in Maryland, it's not just Trump, he went on. It's the entire philosophy that underpins I'm going to say something. It's like semi-fascism. The guy's so dumb, he doesn't even see it himself. Like it's as if there's no mirrors in the White House. Like none at all. And at the ensuing Democratic National Committee rally that evening, the president charged the MAGA Republicans don't just threaten our personal rights and economic security, they're a threat to our very democracy. This is the guy that's supposed to bring hope. This is the guy that's supposed to bring us all together. This is the guy that's supposed to mend the social fabric that's been torn ever since Barack Obama's time, or even a little bit before as well. The Republican National Committee criticized the president's recent jabs at the GOP. Biden has spit on neighbors against each other, labeled half Americans as fascists, and tarnished any idea of his promise of unity. Families are left with a recession, high gas prices, and the nation on the wrong track. I mean, this guy has just done a terrible job of running this country. And we see that from time and time again from Democrats, just running a terrible job. Look what Barack Obama did. I mean, Barack Obama, Thomas Sowell literally qualifies Barack Obama as the worst president in U.S. history, literally just because of his Iran nuclear deal, amongst other things, but primarily that. That's how bad that deal was. Joe Biden here wants to implement the same deal, if not make it worse. And he thinks it's a good deal. He thinks it's a fabulous deal. You going to believe that guy? That guy can't even order a meal right or negotiate a meal. You think he's going to negotiate with Iran that says death to America all the time, that burns our flag, that literally makes puppets of presidents and burns them in the streets like every month and has like a whole freaking party about it in the streets as if they just won the World War? The gaslighting here is just remarkable. From the Biden administration to his mouthpiece, Karine Jean-Pierre, the other day, literally saying that illegal immigrants were not walking across the border. She says it's not real. It's not a thing. It's not happening. And then went on to blame Trump for the immigration problem that we're having right now. Let that sink in. So he's saying MAGA Republicans are a problem, disregarding everything that he's done to tarnish this country and our foreign policy and domestic policy, gaslighting us on this front, going to gaslight us again Thursday, just after Karine Jean-Pierre gaslight us the other day regarding illegal immigration, COVID-19. And Democrats are still voting for this guy, by the way. Like we've talked about on the show, I don't know if anybody got to the tail end of the show the other day, but literally we are not having this red wave that we thought we were. That's why I just got done saying in the article here that we're actually really close. It's very slim margins here. We got to get out and vote, folks. This is some serious stuff. If we don't vote, we're going to have another 4 years of this. We're going to have another 4 years of them targeting conservatives. We're going to have another 4 years plus of them going after Republicans. If they're willing to go after Trump, you guys, they're willing to go after you. They just hired 87,000 IRS agents. It's now come out that some of those agents will be auditing middle-class income people. That's you and I. Maybe some of you are lower class, maybe some of you are higher class. They're going to come for you. It's going to happen. It might not happen next year or the following year, but there's going to be a time where they got to utilize those 87,000 agents. There's not that many billionaires. There's not that many millionaires to utilize all those people. Not everybody's taxes are wrong. So be on the lookout for that, folks. Well, speaking of Democrats and Democrats going against us and Democrats making everything worse, California lawmakers approve a landmark fast food workers bill. Now, a lot of people go, what do I care about California for? California has a tendency to lead the nation as well as blue states in their policies. And then what do blue states do? They look at California and then they inherit that. Prime example, what's going on with electric cars here, that I think it's 2025 or 2035 or something like that. California is not going to allow the sale of electric vehicles in their state. You can still buy used gas vehicles, but new vehicles by a certain time period, I think again it's 2025 or 2035, you can't buy a gas-powered vehicle. Other states now are opting into that as well. So California kind of leads the way on a lot of these things for the other leftist states. California lawmakers on Monday approved a nation-leading measure that would give more than 500,000 fast food workers more power, protections over the objections of restaurant owners who warned it would drive up consumer costs. I hope you are sitting down for this. It is amazing how the left and the Democrat Party don't understand how business works, taxes works, just the state government in general works, and how the business owners, the taxes and everything flows through that up and down, and how you can literally just make everything worse for everybody else, especially during inflation. Check this out. The bill will create a new 10-member fast food council with equal numbers of worker delegates and employers representatives, along with 2 state officials empowered to set minimum standards for wages, hours, working conditions in California. In a nutshell, in part, what this is due is stripping and taking away the power of business owners that own the business, that take the risk and make the decisions. And what they're basically doing in a nutshell, I mean, this is almost rotating now in a form of socialism here, where they're putting the power in the hands of the workers when the workers aren't inheriting the risk. The workers aren't buying the product. In other words, the machinery that's utilized to make the product. They're not doing any of that, but they're going to give them all the power to make decisions as well as the state to dictate what an owner can do and pay. Listen how much this is, okay? Because the national average here for minimum wage is like $7.25. A late amendment would cap any minimum wage increase for fast food workers at chains with more than 100 restaurants at $22 an hour next year, compared to the statewide minimum of $15.50 an hour, with cost of living increasing thereafter. Quote, "We made history today," said Service Employees International Union President Mary Kay Henry, calling it a watershed moment. You think people are going to fire some people for having an increase? Or if they're not going to fire people, where do you think that all this money that they're going to employees now labor is going to get passed down to? Because they're not going to want to cut their profits, right? If it's a public company, they're trying to meet the stakeholders. They're trying to meet investors' obligations of keeping the same profit numbers, at least percentage every year. For the most part, that's what we try to do. So if they need to keep the same profit every single year, that money has to come from somewhere, because they're not going to take a hit on the profit. They're going to push that and pass that down to ultimately the consumer. And it's amazing how, well, everything's getting more expensive, so let's increase minimum wage for the state, and we're going to force you to do it on a state level to these owners. That's why when you go to El Pollo Loco, Taco Bell, you're buying tacos for like $4 or $5 now. You're going to Arby's and getting like a $10 burger. It's wild how it's literally wild how expensive things are in California. I virtually don't go to fast food anymore. Granted, I'm on a diet trying to eat a little bit healthier, but I can have and make a meal at home now for about $3 or less, about $2.89, $2.98, somewhere in that realm, for an entire meal that's going to stuff me that tastes great. And people are just going to stop eating out. I mean, it's not worth going out and hurting your wallet in this kind of way, because people want more money to scrape food and put it onto a plate or throw it in a microwave. I've talked about at length on the show. There's like a Panda Express near me that's given like $20 to $24 an hour to literally scoop and put like food on a plate. It's cooked, you guys. You're not even cooking it. You're literally taking a ladle. I'm sure many of you have been to Panda Express. You got the styrofoam plate, getting paid over $20 to scoop and just put it on the plate. That is crazy. That is mind-blowing. I was having a conversation. I didn't even get paid $22 an hour, even when I was a freaking an intern accountant. And I was an actual accountant at that time. I mean, we were talking a lot of years ago, but still crazy. The legislation is a huge step forward for workers in California and all across the country. You hear that? All across the country. She said, as advocates offered it as a model for other states. Get ready, folks. The Senate approved the measure on a 20-12 vote over bipartisan opposition. Hours later, the Assembly sent it to Governor Gavin Newsom on a final 41-16 vote, both chambers acting with no votes to spare. Debate split among party lines, with Republicans opposed, although 3 Democrat senators voted against the measure and several did not vote. So it's like some just didn't show up. At least there seems to be some that have sane minds of like, this is a bad thing to do. We already have inflation as a country, 8.5%. Gavin Newsom wants to give gas cards or debit cards to people like willy-nilly, and is going to do it to help combat inflation, to help pay for gas. Yes, you heard me correctly. He wants to pump California with more money, give people free money to help curb inflation. That only increases inflation, folks. It is wild. And now they want to increase labor, costing people more money, whether it's at services or it's for products, which is going to increase inflation once again. It's not, I mean, literally, this is actually just basic micro and macroeconomics. I mean, this is literally as basic as you can get high school level, and they don't understand it. And then they wonder why businesses leave. They wonder why they get the hell out of town, because they can't afford to pay for the labor here, because it's hurting their profits. There's actual business owners in the state of California that have been around for a century, 100 years. And they're like, hey, we just can't afford it anymore. I literally can't hire somebody at those rates. And they're too old at this time to work. Their family members got separate jobs. And so it's just driving them out of business because they can't afford the labor. And not only can they afford it, they can't hire anybody because people are asking for $22 an hour to literally flip a burger. But the Democrats, are saying that we're the ones that are going to, we're a threat to democracy. We're a threat to it all. And all it is a vicious cycle. I mean, I remember when I was working at Staples in college, getting paid $8 an hour. I know some of you are like, well, I didn't get paid that much in college. I get it. There's a point I'm trying to make here. $8 an hour. Now it's $15.50 in California. Okay. It's almost doubled since 2008. Okay. Well, all it is going to happen again is the landlords are just going to keep increasing the rent because they know they could charge more because you're getting paid more. The government knows that you're making more money. So whether you're doing increased taxes because they know they can tax you more, Well, now that everything's getting taxed more, everything's more expensive because it has to get passed down to the consumer as well because they're paying more labor for you to work at that restaurant or at that institution. Well, now the cost of living's gone up, everything's gone up. Oh, what do we got to do 10 years later or 5 years later? Got to increase minimum wage again because the standard of living increases. So it's just a revolving cycle, and it's only going to get worse. It's always going to increase here. And I'd like to point out, folks, a fast food job is not supposed to be a career. I don't care what people say of like, oh, well, you know, what are they supposed to do? They can't get out of it. If you make a series of good decisions and you plan accordingly, yes, you can get out of it. You might have to work a couple jobs. You might have to take out a loan or whatever it is, or do certain precautions. You might have to sacrifice. But just to say, well, people want a better standard of living. They don't want to make the necessary changes in their life to have that better standard of living. So we have to increase and jack up prices. So we all have to pay for it when we go eat or do something else because that person wants to make a career out of a job of scooping plate or flipping burgers or servicing or waitressing. I'm not crapping on waitress and servers. It's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying that this is just going to keep being a revolving and vicious circle and cycle here, and it's never going to end. If anything, it's going to make things worse, and you're going to drive out businesses from your state, which is happening. Look at Tesla. Look at the Daily Wire. I mean, there's countless people that had their headquarters here, and they're getting the hell out of town because they don't want to pay for the freaking labor for it. And it's just going to continue and continue and continue. Our last news story of the day, folks, not to frustrate the hell out of you, but Kamala Harris was on the tarmac, and she was asked regarding the student loan debt, how it's going to get paid. If you recall, we did a whole episode, at least a segment of it, on Peter Doocy asking very clearly to Karine Jean-Pierre. I mean, he literally couldn't be any more clear, saying, who is going to pay for it? Where is the money coming from, Karine? Who is going to pay for it? Where is the money coming from, Karine? I mean, he literally kept repeating himself. If you haven't checked that episode, folks, check it out because it is wild. And he's been having to do that time and time again where he's just repeating one question and they're not willing to answer. Well, thankfully, you have a reporter that's willing to do the exact same thing here of going like, who specifically is going to be paying for this thing? And do you think that we get an answer from her? Do you think that she's willing to say, oh yeah, you know, let me go ahead and answer this for you. I'll give you a clear answer. Probably not, but let's go ahead and roll it anyways.
Who specifically is footing the bill for student loan forgiveness? We haven't gotten a concrete answer from the administration yet.
Well, let's start with this. First of all, a lot of the same people who are criticizing what we rightly did in following through on a commitment that we made to forgive student loan debt are the same people who voted for a tax cut for the richest Americans. So when we look at who is benefiting from this, 90% of the people who are going to benefit from student loan forgiveness make under $75,000 a year. And that debt has been the reason that they're unable to start a family, buy a home, and pursue their piece of the American dream.
Do you think
We're talking about $10,000 here, folks. $10,000 is hindering people from buying a home and chasing the American dream. There's so many things that are wrong with that. If that is the case, if you are actually hindering somebody from buying a home, then why would you not talk about at least giving some sort of debt forgiveness to those that actually have mortgages? If somebody's struggling to pay off $10,000 of student loans, you giving them that money is not going to allow them to buy a house. It's not just all of a sudden going to open the floodgates and all of a sudden now you have all this money in your pocket. You're still in a deficit probably. You probably have credit card debt because the way that you handle your finances, maybe the career path you chose isn't the right one. I mean, I strongly encourage all of you to watch Dave Ramsey because he has a litany of callers that just talk all the time about it. I would hear it during accounting. We have clients coming in saying, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, I don't know where my money's going, I don't know how I'm paying for things, I don't know why I have this loan, how do I get rid of it? Just because you give somebody $10,000 does not mean it opens up all the floodgates and all these doors start opening and just endless possibilities of what could happen. If they're struggling before, odds are they're still going to be struggling later, just not as much because you just gave them $10,000. By the way, again, we're still in inflation. Do you think this might inflate the economy in some way, shape, or form because you just relinquished everybody's debt here? It's so crazy. Well, it's tiresome, you guys. It really is. Just this whole administration is so tiring on what they do, and the gaslighting, the lying, the not answering of questions. You just literally want to hit your head against the wall. So as you saw, while on the tarmac, after she traveled to see the since scrubbed launch of Artemis 1 that's costing us billions of dollars over budget, by the way. A reporter asked Harris, the administration expects to pay for the plan. Like, who's going to pay for it, Kamala? Well, who specifically is footing the bill for student loan forgiveness? The Fox News journalist asked. It's like only Fox asked in this question. We haven't gotten a concrete answer from the administration yet. Instead, offering an explanation on how the program will be financed, Harris simply began reciting administration talking points defending the program. Well, let's start with this. First of all, a lot of people, some who are criticizing what rightly did in the following through a commitment that we made to forgive student loan debt, and the same people who voted for a tax cut for the richest Americans. I would like to point out that it's the richest Americans that are actually paying for the majority of taxes in this country. I'd also like to point out it's the richest Americans that are also employing a lot of Americans here in this country. But no, continue to hit the rich. Continue to hound them, you knucklehead. I don't understand why they're so against rich people. Honest to God, she just talked about allowing people to go after the American dream because you're somehow releasing $10,000 for them. How about those that actually obtained the American dream of becoming wealthy, and now all of a sudden they're evil because they succeeded in America, of which the American dream thrives? And by the way, you don't have to be a millionaire to attain the American dream. Hell, just people coming here and just having a business of them for their own, having those rights and those freedoms that are granted within the U.S. Constitution is living the American dream. Not being under a freaking, fascist regime or a dictatorship or whatever it may be, like North Korea or what you see in Venezuela or other places around the globe. They're coming here for a better life, and just living here in America is the American dream. But I don't understand the fascination with Bernie Sanders, AOC, Kamala Harris now going after the rich. I honest to God, I don't get it. So when we look at who's benefiting from this, 90% of people who are going to benefit from student loan forgiveness make under $75,000 a year. If that's the case, if it's 90%, then why are you including the $125,000? Because the limit, right? The $10,000 goes to everybody that basically has the loan and it has under $125,000. It's crazy. And the debt has been the reason they are unable to start a family, buy a home, and pursue their piece of the American dream. $10,000 stopping you from starting a family? Some of these people started a family before they took out the loan, which was a bad financial decision. Because obviously we know how expensive mouths are to feed. I mean, there's so many things we can go with this, folks. It's down a rabbit hole. I'm not going to get in that rabbit hole. You understand where I'm coming from. Make good decisions. Don't take out loans that you can't pay back. Don't expect other people for a handout. For all those that got the handout, kudos to you. You deserve it. You got it. So you might as well take it. Harris claimed critics of the plan voted to give a tax cut to the richest Americans, but Blaze reported numerous Democrats competing in tight elections ahead of the midterms openly criticized Biden's plan last week, suggesting the issue is not the Democrats believe will curry favor with moderate voters. Meanwhile, Harris also claims that Americans who earn less than $75,000 is overblown. This is what I was talking about. First, Penn Wharton found that 75% of the benefits is occurring to households making $88,000 or less. Second, the median individual income in America is roughly $67,500. Thus, it would make sense that the majority of debt forgiveness would benefit individuals who earn less than $75,000. So who's paying? The question still remains unanswered, folks. We have no idea, but last Friday, a White House official told reporters that the administration views the plan as a fully paid for by $1.7 trillion in deficit reduction that is attributed to pandemic-related spending that has since dissipated. Think about that, okay? They're saying because you have a $1.7 trillion deficit reduction, that somehow this is going to pay for it. It literally doesn't make sense. Cognitively, it doesn't make sense. In a sentence, no matter how many times you say it out loud, it doesn't make sense. And somehow, you get these Democrats that are all for it. It makes sense to them some way, shape, or form. Who's going to pay for it then? If it makes so much sense to everybody in the Democrat Party and the progressive left, and you're a Democrat or a progressive left that watches this show, you write there in the comments then. Everybody look at the comments. Everybody look that's watching this right now. It's made it this far in the show. Anybody see anybody writing who's going to pay for this thing from the Dem? I want a Democrat to write and progressive left. Nobody on the Republicans or conservatives, meaning the Bob Bradshaw viewers, don't write who's going to pay for this. Because obviously it's the taxpayers. Let's be honest. I want the answer coming from Democrats, Republicans, because supposedly to them, this whole thing makes sense. Because if it makes sense, then you know where the money's coming from, who's paying for it. They don't have a clue. They don't have a damn clue. They just want to sit there and rub the shoulders and feet of Joe Biden, the Democrat Party, tell it freaking to ride this country just right into the ground, and they'll ride along right with it. And somehow that would make sense to them because America's evil, racist, all these other things. So I could rant for hours, folks. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. Heck, folks, tomorrow is freaking September. Holy crap. Just 1 month closer, folks, to Joe Biden hopefully being out of the White House. And maybe we can get Trump or DeSantis in there and finally freaking fix a lot of things. So got about a year and a half at least of this shenanigans. It's content, folks, but heck, it's tiresome. I know all of you are frustrated. I'm frustrated too. I hope it's an outlet that we can share this frustration together. You listen to me rant, you listen to me bitch and moan. I greatly appreciate it. As always, folks, support the show by hitting that like and subscribe button. Don't forget to share the links, guys. Go to Reddit, go to Facebook, YouTube, wherever it is that you can share these links. Your help and support is always greatly appreciated. And folks, I will see you tomorrow here on The Paul Brad Show.